Pikmin 2 is a game infamous for the many game-breaking glitches and exploits present in its speedrun. Entire segments of this game can be skipped, walls can be avoided, and physics can be broken just to get an optimal time. What was thought to be a 20+ hour game has been reduced to less than 4 hours, and there is no better demonstration of the brokenness of Pikmin 2 than with the blue Pikmin percent run.
The rules of the blue Pikmin run are simple. Get a blue Pikmin in the shortest time possible by any means necessary. Usually to unlock blue Pikmin, the player would need to unlock the perplexing pool by collecting the geographic projection in the Awakening Wood. They would then travel there and find yellow Pikmin before returning to the Awakening Wood, where they can then whistle and acquire blue Pikmin. For a long time, this was presumed to be the quickest route to acquiring blues.
The first run ever submitted to the Blue Pikmin category was a 3314 by runner Noah Moa. The footage is of very low quality, but we'll go through it regardless. The run starts upon entering the save file, and immediately the opening cutscene is skipped with the start button. From here, the game plays out as usual, with Noah Moa running through the tutorial days as expected. This is a lengthy process, and the next day isn't entered until over 8 minutes into the run.
Similarly, the second day plays out as usual too, with the player collecting pellets and making their way to the first cave, the Emergence Cave. The Emergence Cave holds a spherical atlas treasure, which allows the player to travel to the Awakening Wood, where the blue Pikmin are found. On the first sublevel, they skip past the treasures and go right to the final sublevel, as collecting treasures is not needed for this run. On the final sublevel, No makes their way to the Violet Candy Pop Puds, allowing them to turn 10 of their red Pikmin into 10 purple Pikmin. I'm sorry.
In Pikmin 2, purple Pikmin have the strength of 10 regular Pikmin, meaning that heavy treasures can be carried with just a fraction of the number of Pikmin it usually would take. This is particularly helpful in this run, as 2 treasures required for the completion, the Spherical Atlas and the Geographic Projection, both require the strength of 101 Pikmin to carry. As only 100 Pikmin can be used at one time, we therefore need purples in order to acquire these treasures.
Despite now being able to collect the Spherical Atlas, Noah Moa decides to leave the cave instead, before going back to the cave to run it again. This is because an obstacle later in the run requires the player to have more than 10 purples, and the fastest way of getting these purples is by going through the Emergence Cave again. If Noah Moa had collected the treasure, it would have triggered a cutscene upon leaving the cave, which would end the day, making it far more time-consuming to collect the extra purples. So for this reason, they collect the Spherical Atlas on their second time, meaning they now have 20 purples going into the Awakening Wood.
Once in the Awakening Wood, Noah Moa travels to the White Flower Garden, running through and finding white Pikmin, who will be used later on in the run. After leaving, the runner proceeds to the Poison Wall, which holds the treasure needed. Poison walls require white Pikmin to knock down, as they are the only type immune to poisonous hazards. However, instead of knocking down the wall, Noah Moa throws their Pikmin onto the heightened part of the map, with the other captain then whistling them from below to the bridge to bring them there. This bypasses the need for destroying the wall, which is usually a lengthy task considering most players will only have 15 white Pikmin at this point in the game. These whistled Pikmin can then build the bridge to the geographic projection, allowing it to be swiftly collected, and then the day ends.
Noah Moa next travels to the perplexing pool, where they navigate to the poison wall, blocking access to the yellow Pikmin. After it is cleared, a yellow Pikmin is whistled and the day is immediately ended. Although the results in most of Moa's Pikmin being left behind, this doesn't matter, as no more Pikmin will be needed for the remainder of the run. The runner then returns to the Awakening Wood and immediately runs toward the area in which the blue Pikmin are held.
There is a hazardous electric gate blocking access to the blue Pikmin, meaning to get to them, a player must destroy the gate with yellow Pikmin. When a player gets yellow Pikmin, they are then allowed to call the blue Pikmin, as the game knows that they will be able to take down the obstacle to them. As soon as the blue Pikmin is alerted, the screen fades to black and the run has ended.
Although quicker than perhaps how the developers intended it, the majority of this run still follows the basic and narrative flow of a regular playthrough, particularly in the tutorial day. Despite this, Noah Moa's 3314 run would remain on top for almost a year, with no competition in the category. but in June of the next year, this time would be beaten by the runner Squeechu, with a time of 26:38. However, there doesn't seem to be any video footage of this run, so we won't be discussing it too much here.
The next time improvement to come to the category would be in December of 2016 with a run of 2045 by player MCAT55. This run would introduce a variety of new strategies and skips, 3 of which are used almost universally in all runs of Pikmin 2 due to the massive time saves they offer the player. The first of these would come almost as soon as the run starts, and its purpose? Completely eliminating the tutorial.
This is D1E, which stands for Day 1 Extinction. In Pikmin 2, there is a failsafe in place which immediately ends the current day if the player ever loses their entire supply of Pikmin. When the player goes back into an area after an extinction, the game will supply them with a single Pikmin from which they can grow back their army.
Despite the fact that there is a bulborb present in the tutorial day, the developers disabled it from being able to eat a player's Pikmin, or else it could make the tutorial impossible to pass. What they did not take into account, however, was the other way in which a Pikmin could be killed in the tutorial day.
By calling a Pikmin off the bulborb and positioning Olimar at a specific angle against the hill, you can throw the Pikmin and have it be transported out of bounds. This is because the throwing action sets the Pikmin behind the hill's vertical hitbox, where the Pikmin then gets stopped by hitting the hill's horizontal hitbox. You can then whistle the Pikmin through the wall and have it follow you until it runs off the ground hitbox and falls into the void, causing the player to have 0 Pikmin in their party. The game recognizes this as an extinction, and when the player enters back into the area, the tutorial is now over.
Despite this skip, MCAT55 cannot immediately proceed to the emergence cave, as the weighted obstacles still stand between them, requiring more Pikmin to be collected. The area they are trapped in only has so many pellets, meaning it isn't until day 4 where they can progress. This time, MCAT55 collects the Spherical Atlas on their first visit to the cave, as new strategies now negated the need for more than 10 purple Pikmin in the run. The cave is left, the day is over, and we can move on to the Awakening Wood.
MCAT55 makes their way to the weight blocking the White Flower Garden, but instead of weighing it down, performs a strat named the Mum Bump, whereby enraging a creeping chrysanthemum and getting it to perform its bloat attack, Olimar can be knocked up to different platforms and levitations. This is used to waltz over to the bag and get to the cave quickly. However, unlike with No Mal's run, MCAT55 fights the boss of the cave, the Burrowing Snagret. This is because it holds possibly the most vital treasure in any Pikmin 2 speedrun, the 5-man knapsack.
Essentially, the knapsack allows the captain to lie down on the floor where they can then be picked up and carried by a Pikmin. This has been majorly exploited by runners in all areas of the game to have Pikmin carry them up while also never normally climbable, meaning runners can get almost anywhere they like. This action is referred to as knapsacking, and is used in countless parts of a standard Pikmin 2 speedrun, and perhaps the best example of strat in use can be seen right after it's acquired.
Once back on the surface, MCAT55 heads to a platform usually blocked by hazardous walls and knapsacks to launch themselves up. This is done to set up what is probably the most notorious and difficult of all Pikmin 2 speedrun strategies: Early Blues. Early Blues is exactly as it sounds. getting blue Pikmin long before they are meant to be gotten by completely avoiding yellow Pikmin and the perplexing pool. This works by having a captain get out of bounds and running along the side of the map before running off, knapsacking, and, if done right, respawning in the blue Pikmin's habitat. There is very little ground outside the bounds for the captain to travel on, so players must stick close to the boundaries to not fall off prematurely, but also far away enough so that the game doesn't clip them back into bounds. This can be an extremely tedious task, requiring hours of practice to get consistently. But, if set up and performed correctly, it saves a monumental amount of time.
To get out of bounds, MCAT55 performs yet another trick, wherein Olimar can clip into a scale puzzle by standing on top of it as it rises, while simultaneously a cutscene plays out. In Pikmin 2, cutscenes freeze all current assets in the game, but for whatever reason, does not freeze a moving scale. When the cutscene ends, Olimar remains in the position he was in before the cutscene started, meaning he is now inside the scale and can walk out of bounds. With these tricks put together, MCAT55 can complete their run and finish in a time of 20 minutes and 45 seconds. A pretty significant improvement over the previous records for the category.
A month after this run, a player going by HSS0136 brought the time down by a minute to 19 minutes and 24 seconds. This run didn't bring any new strategies to the category, instead simply improving on the tactics presented in previous records. Despite the minor differences, the run managed to stay on top of the leaderboards for over a year, until March 21st of 2018, when runner ShadowLugia brought the record down, again by over a minute.
This new 18-minute run was quick. By introducing a new mum bump strategy, ShadowLugia was able to avoid the black bramble wall, which would usually need to be destroyed in order to access the rest of the map. They did this by performing a mum bump by a cliff on the opposite side of the map, then traversing a group of red Pikmin through some water, then performing yet another mum bump to allow them to run along the outer wall of the map. This allowed them to avoid both the weighted bag obstacle and the black bramble wall obstacle, before reaching the White Flower Garden to acquire the 5-man knapsack needed for early blues.
Despite how long this new strategy sounds, black walls in Pikmin 2 take such a long time to knock down that this skip is still quicker than waiting for your Pikmin to take it down. Once out the cave, the run returned to the usual. A wall was jumped, a scale was glitched, and early blues left the run with a time that seemed almost perfect for the category.
That was until 4 months later on July 14th, when runner Cap reduced the time by 3 seconds to a 17:57. However, unlike previous records, this one seemed to go unchallenged. No new strategies were found, no new skips to break the game. And so, there the record stood, a seemingly perfect run in a seemingly forgotten category.
More than 3 years after setting the previous world record, Cap had come back to bring the record down by another 14 seconds. There were no new tricks, no new glitches. Cap had just optimized the existing strategy to a degree where a quarter of a minute could be saved on a run which already seemed to be as quick as it could get. And once again, this run remained on top for a long time. It wouldn't be until 17 months later when a new player would take the record off of Cap, ending a 4.5-year domination of the category. And this time, the runner had a new trick up their sleeve.
Oh, yes, dude. First try. First try.
This is Knockback Extension, also referred to as KBE. Similarly to Mum Bums, KBE works by using the knockback given by the Creeping Chrysanthemum's blow attack to push Olimar in a given direction. However, by switching captains just as an attack is about to occur and pausing the game whilst Olimar is receiving the knockback, The effect of the knockback keeps playing whilst everything else becomes frozen. This results in Olimar flying across the map, and once again reaching a platform not normally accessible to the player. The player can then run towards the cave and proceed the run as usual.
The first runner to implement this strategy into a world record for blue Pikmin percent would be Chemical, who actually set a time of 1859 5 months earlier using the trick. But to get knockback extension to work, Olimar must be positioned in a pretty precise spot and angle, and the creeping chrysanthemum doesn't always play nicely, meaning it took a while for everything to go as needed. But this time, it had paid off, with Chemical shaving off 17 seconds from the previous record, 1 second for each month that Cap's record had held the top position. And as of making this video, this is where the record stands today, a 17:26 by Chemical.
I don't doubt that this record will be broken in the future. There's still likely optimization to be done regarding the KBE skip, and some theorize a strategy besides early blues can be found to get into the blue Pikmin's habitat without having to get the 5-man knapsack at all. But for now, this record remains unchallenged.
Whilst not the most popular of Pikmin 2 speedrunning categories and one of the shortest runs in the game, the blue Pikmin percent run manages to bring together tricks made both for the category and tricks implemented across all competitions of Pikmin 2 speedrunning. The hours of dedication needed to perfect strategies, all for a run that's over in less than 20 minutes. What's maybe the most amazing thing about this run is that in its 8-year history, only one runner has ever held the top spot more than once, and since Chemical set the new record in January of 2023, there hasn't been a single run submitted to the leaderboards. Which begs the question, who's next?